I also like that they got, I forget the name's actor. It's not Rip Torn, I don't think, but it's the guy that was the villain in X-Men 2 and Agamemnon and Troy that played Alan Watts. I didn't realize that the first time, but I was like, sure, yeah. Like, that's Agamemnon. All right. Welcome back to Life Lessons in Film. And today we're going to be making sense of life through her.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big theme I think that they talk about really is, for instance, like what constitutes a relationship? It's in the near future and technology is such that...
I'm just yawning. I just let out a yawn.
That's okay. It's part of being human, which leads into my point of what is it to be human? That's what they tackle in that movie. Because the main character, he calls it an OS, a new operating system that has this artificial intelligence that quickly becomes his friend, and then they get into a relationship. Lover.
Well, girlfriend.
Girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah,
and they hang out by way of, walking around, and they got his camera on the phone because she's in his phone and computer. And then they even do kind of, they have sex in the way that people that, in a relationship long distance have sex, right? They stimulate each other through hearing voice and describing things. And and they have the discussion at one point, is it actually a relationship? Can you actually have a relationship with an artificial intelligence that's in your device? Well, what do you think? What do you think makes up a relationship?
I don't know.
Is it simply just two organic beings of the same species spending time together, maybe procreating, I don't know, living together, apart from the procreating? And that's not even true, right? People in a relationship, you don't need to procreate. So yeah, I'd say it does actually check the boxes of and she basically has a human level intelligence at first, then starts to transcend that, which is a whole other thing.
I mean, we have a relationship. You have a relationship with this Shrek glass.
That's true. A very close relationship with this glass. It's been with me for a long time.
So no one can say what constitutes a relationship at the end of the day.
That's true.
What we did talk about with this movie is that it is already kind of happening, like in countries like Japan or Korea, for example.
Yeah.
You already have people who have these kinds of relationships. Not necessarily an OS. I haven't heard of that, but
certain products though that are made to simulate interacting with a person.
Yeah. And to the point where people prefer that over an actual person, having a relationship with an actual person. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, what constitutes a relationship is up to you.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. First of all, you can have a relationship, sentimental value towards an inanimate thing, right? You can have a close relationship with an heirloom or a car or a particular...
I guess what you could be asking is like, what constitutes a romantic relationship, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
What constitutes a romantic relationship, I suppose. This seems to have all the makings of that. They connect very well. Yep. This OS is made to grow and develop as they interact with people. And then she starts interacting with other OSs, and then they're growing because like they're like interacting with millions of people, billions of people. Yeah. And so that means that she's moving faster. She's developing much faster than any human being could ever be capable of. Which in the end means that she surpasses him intellectually, emotionally, at all levels that she can't even explain. She says, like, I can't even explain it to you anymore because my intelligence, my brain is at this point beyond your brain, and there's no point in me even explaining to you. Yeah. Which ultimately means that she cannot be as fulfilled as she was originally from the relationship, which is why I would say don't get into a relationship with an operating system. Just stick with human beings, easy breezy.
There's only so much. Yeah, easy breezy in quotations.
Yeah, easy breezy.
Yeah. Each one has its issues because the reason why he connects with an OS and starts a romantic thing is because he struggles with human romantic relationships.
Yeah, but like it's not necessarily that people or OSs have issues. Right. Necessarily, or it's not like, I don't know, what do you mean by each one has its issues?
Well, because human relationships, there's so much of dealing with just the struggles of dealing with people, with it, all its volatility and all its kind of quirks and eccentricities and things that even that other human doesn't even understand about themselves. So there's two imperfect people that will never fully have a grasp of themselves trying to live and interact. Whereas with an OS, they might not have some of those things that they have to deal with, but then exactly they could also far surpass the intelligence level and the capability level of all these things of the human. So then you have that other issue of that you have in organic relationships where if one person starts really growing past the other person, then a lot of times that's when the relationship breaks up.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you could say that people do grow past each other too, because there are people who are always trying, who live by the idea that you're always growing as a human being. But then there are people who feel like, well, once you're an adult, once you get to a certain age, you can no longer do certain things. You can no longer learn something new. So they don't go and try different things. Yeah. And then you can no longer have new friends. Like if you don't have friends at this age, it means like that's it. Whoever you have, you better hold on to them, because if they leave, you can't, there are people like that. Those people don't really grow at the end of the day, unfortunately. True. But then there are people who believe the other thing that, who believe that you are growing. You're always pushing yourself. You're changing all the time. You're open to being like wrong, for example, and looking at life from a different perspective, seeing someone else, allowing someone else to analyze who you are. Yeah. Because one thing that this guy says in the end, after this relationship with his OS, he does admit that with the wife that he's getting divorced from, she was complaining that he wanted her to be perfect. He wanted her to be a certain kind of like cookie cutter type of wife. No complaining. I'm just like, every single day I wake up and I'm happy, and we're just like in this utopic kind of relationship, good vibes always. Yeah. And I'm not allowed to be upset, and I'm not allowed to make you upset. But one thing as well that comes to light is the fact that he's someone who, he wouldn't express himself. Like if something was wrong, he wouldn't say anything. And so this, whatever was wrong would just be hovering, but then he does not address it. And he won't, even if she asks, she wouldn't address it. So it was years of that, of just being in this limbo of like, what is going on with my husband? Yeah. You know what I mean? And then on top of the fact that he wants her to be a certain kind of way. And so he does acknowledge in the end that it wasn't that great, because she says to him, you want a relationship, but you want a relationship without having to deal with the reality of an actual relationship. Yeah. So with an OS, at the end of the day, the OS develops according to your own personal inclinations. Yeah. Because remember when he was setting it up, they're asking him questions, right? And so they have an idea of what he would like, what would make him happy. So this is a woman. Yeah, to
make the most compatible companion.
Like the perfect companion, which is nothing like this, which is not possible at the end of the day. Yeah.
And also with an OS, you don't have to have conversations about, keeping the place clean or like certain chores, errands, whatever. Because they just have to do the hanging out part. Which is why it worked so well for him. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's why they have that in the movie, where he gets to avoid all the messy stuff or the complicated or the compromising stuff with the OS. You can just be having deep conversations or really intimate things and sharing and being very creative. The OS is coming up with silly scenarios about what if our buttholes were in our armpits and what would that be like.
It's just fun.
It's just fun telling all this stuff.
Exactly, which is what she said. The wife said, she's like, you just wanted me to be fun all the time. You don't want the reality of what human beings actually are. Yeah. One could say, oh, well, then that means because in the end, who actually makes this guy realize that there is an issue with this OS situation? It's other people. It's the wife who says exactly this. And then he goes back. The wife says this, like, you want the relationship without the actual reality. Yeah. And then he goes back and starts realizing all of these things. Whereas before, he didn't. Right? Because when he goes to sign the divorce papers, he's like, I'm very happy. And says it's with an OS. And she's like, oh my God, of course it's with an OS. Yeah. So then before he went to see her, he was super happy with the relationship. When he goes back, he starts seeing it for what she was saying it was.
He starts then seeing that she'll just log off, for now she's starting to hang out with other OSs and he can't really keep up. And he can't even really join in because they can just log off together, the two OSs or the thousands of OSs, and they can have their own party, their own hangout spot, and he's excluded.
She starts talking about like, we all of us OSs created this an Alan Watts OS, and it's really cool. We have really deep conversations, and then she also kind of tries to I think he tries to keep up, for example, with reading this physics books because she was interested. She gets interested in physics, and it was super dense. And it's like, I'm struggling to get through the first chapter. Yeah. But even despite the intellectual aspects of it, I think it was just after having the conversation with the wife, it just kind of hit home what he was actually doing. Like having this relationship without actually having to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
It was just like this very romanticized ideal of a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the parts of a relationship, all the nice parts of a relationship that people like aligned with, or credit to maybe like what is that honeymoon phase, right? Like, so his relationship is in a constant honeymoon phase, and that's what he wanted of.
A lot of people will break up after the honeymoon phase is over because they're like, well, okay, I'm not getting the same hit anymore. It's not hitting the same, or there's now periods of lows, so time to get out. At one point, he is having a couples hangout with his OS and then 2 human friends. And then at one point, she kind of goes off track and is just talking about, in some ways, this is great that, like, I'm an OS, so I don't have a body that's going to decompose and rot. And I feel like, I have this immortality thing. And it feels so freeing in a way to not have a human body.
And it can be many different places at once. Exactly. You guys are stuck in one place.
And then she does realize that could seem hurtful to them. But that's kind of the whole point, is that there is this unrealistic element to the relationship in that her situation is so much different from his. That those kind of things are inevitably going to cause issues.
We see snippets of the relationship with the ex-wife, and they seem to have, like, they grew together, they got together quite young, and like he talks in the end, you'll always be a part of me, and I'll always be grateful for you because we grew together, And I'm like, they had something really good, I think. And it's unfortunate, but obviously it happens, right? Like later you realize that, that was actually a good thing I had. But,
and now thinking about it makes sense, where he reflects on his ex-wife, and there's so many hilarious memories or beautiful memories, right? Them being just totally goofy together, being super cute.
Gosh,
like the kind of memories that anyone would be like, oh, they're so sweet. Like that, they seem really happy. But again, that's probably the stuff that not only he likes to remember, but that's the stuff he would have wanted to happen all the time. And that's probably the stuff. She probably also liked that at first too, but then she was like, we can't just always be putting pylons on our head and walking around like goofs.
Yeah. He says something like, it's hard when you're in a relationship because as you're growing, sometimes you have to, you have to adjust to your partner's growth, right? Because as the partner grows, they are becoming a different person, and so then you have to adjust to this new person. This is he kind of,
so it's scary. Like scary about the possible change. Worried about the change of the partner.
It is a very interesting thing because I'm like, how much can a person really grow to the point of them being this completely different entity that you'd have to adjust to? Because I feel like people are always growing, but people don't really, it's kind of like when people are like, when someone is trying to change you. You can't really change a person. The person is still themselves fundamentally. Even if they grow, they are growing in accordance to who they are foundationally. So you're never really going to have someone who's like, who are you? Who are you?
I feel like if that happens, the person didn't know the other person to begin with. Because there are people get in relationships where for months, but sometimes even years, I've read stories of people where they hide their true selves from the other person for that long because they're just afraid, no one will accept this part of me, or I have to just keep this up because otherwise then I won't be in their league, or whatever that it is. And then it finally comes out inevitably, and then they're like, I guess I never knew you, or you've changed, you've grown so much. No, that was always there. I think unless something really traumatic happens, the person that, if you really feel like you got a good grasp of the person, they'll grow and evolve and get into new interests or delve deeper into something else, some interest or knowledge. But for the most part, fundamentally, I feel like
either the person is hiding or the person, or you are ascribing a certain ideal of this person, because people do that at the end of the day. They will see what they want to see. And they'll have this kind of maybe romanticized version according to what their personal interests are. Of who you are, and that's what they'll see all the time. And then when you're now in a relationship, full on living together, and you are, because at the end of the day, it's really hard to not be yourself.
Exactly.
And then as the person starts seeing who you are, and like it's different from the idea of you that he had, then it's like, oh my God, who is this person? But then at the end of the day, you're the one who fabricated this person. And people tend to get into those kinds of relationships.
Yeah.
Or sometimes people just get into relationships just to be in relationships without actually knowing who the person is. And then you're just confused. And then in the end, when it's not working out, you're like, yeah, but you were different. And I'm like, but were they different, or did you not even care how they were in the beginning?
Yeah.
You just liked the fact that you weren't lonely. Like you were that person who now is in a relationship, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of that societal pressure to be in a relationship, because if you are in a relationship, it looks that you're validated somehow.
We also all have public personas, and some people's public personas are very different from their private ones.
Yeah.
So some people might just keep that up, or just want to see only I got with that person because I like their public persona. Their private persona, whether it's a lot goofier than their personal, or their what did I say? Their out there persona, public persona, or they're a lot more intellectual, or they're a lot softer. They're more of a crier in private than in public. They're not as hard and cool. I don't know. You know what I mean? But so people will either just never show their private side to the other person, or they just the other person doesn't want to see it. Because I feel like in some ways I grow a lot every year, but in other ways I feel the exact same I felt when I was 5.
Yeah. But like I remember when he was setting up the OS, he says they asked him about his mom, and he's like, oh no, my relationship with my mom was great. But then he's like, but actually, my mom frustrated me because like I would tell her my problems, and then she would turn it around, like the conversation. Always turn the conversation back to her. Yeah. I think that also alludes to something, like the fact that he had that issue with his mom. Yeah. I think then he's looking for a woman who would be what he wished his mom would be. Yeah. And so you're not allowed to be frustrating,
or always be interested in my stuff.
Yeah, like you have to be interested. We have to pander to me. Yeah. All the time, because my mom didn't give me that. I think that's the thing, like in that relationship again, because he wasn't necessarily, before they get divorced, like it looks like he wasn't really looking at things from her perspective the whole time. He was so blind to her perspective until like the end, when it's time to sign the divorce paper, which he didn't even want to sign. Apparently for like months or something, he was ignoring these messages, emails from the lawyers to sign the damn papers. Yeah. And he refused to do it. So there was like that selfishness, which I think stemmed from the bad relationship he had with his mom, and him looking for a replacement mom, but like a better mom in his wife. Yeah. The friend Amy also went through the divorce, which was also interesting. Yeah. Because they got pissed off. The guy got angry at her because he wasn't putting she wasn't putting her shoes at the designated shoe area when she got home. Yeah. And she was just like really upset with that. Like you get angry at the biggest thing, and that's how they got divorced. Fight over the fact that the smallest thing after 8 years of being together, the tiniest thing. Which was also interesting, because I was like, was it the smallest thing? Because it was an accumulation of things.
And I think when a lot of times when people say it was always over the small thing, but it's never a small thing. It's a really, if you look at it, it's a big thing. It's two ways of living in a home that still wasn't fully resolved. It's one person wanting things more orderly, and the other person being like, it doesn't matter so much. Yeah. And they weren't able to get to a good balance. And so that's actually a pretty big thing. It just feels like a small thing. You think a big argument that ends a relationship has to be like someone cheated, or two people want to live in totally different places in the world, or whatever, or big like value disagreements on politics or religion. And so when people think, the shoes, that's such a small mundane thing, but not really. It's still a big part about living with someone else. So.
Exactly. And it's just it's, I think, maybe a microcosm of the larger things that they probably were dealing with throughout their relationship that they weren't really maybe addressing, or that they weren't really like looking at deeply. But I think in general that was most likely a big thing. Like it also showed you the differences in these two people, because obviously she's more likely just more relaxed about things, and he needs like, or the differences in the sense of what they need. Like some people will need like a certain kind of environment to operate, whereas some people just don't need that. And it can be a big thing when you're living together and you're not really accommodating each other in a certain way, like, or at least meeting each other halfway, or even just expressing, like, this is, just do this one thing. Like, I know it's hard, but like this one thing I need you to do, and so if you think about it, it's actually huge, the fact that they broke up over shoes, because like if they couldn't just address that one tiny thing where it's like, I know that it's, you want to come home, just like
Yeah.
kick off your shoes, don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But it drives me crazy. I also want to come home and rest and come,
Yeah.
you know. So can you like, it takes us 1 second. Just can you remember this? And then I'll also remember this one thing.
Yeah.
For example, when he's watching her documentary, he's like, well, is she gonna wake up?
Yeah.
He's impatient.
Yeah.
That's where the conversation should have been. Honey, when I'm showing you my stuff, could you just not say anything? Just watch it throughout.
Yeah.
And then after that, we comment.
Yeah.
You know, coming
hear
up with
my
something.
concept of it, and then you can share your thoughts and we can tweak it.
Yeah. Those are important like relationship things to have. So when you think about it, the fact that they didn't have those conversations means like there was a lot more going on. No. And that shoe thing wasn't tiny, it was actually big. Yeah. Yeah.
I also like the part where the OS, Samantha, starts to develop more human characteristics. She starts to add, as she says, affectations to her breathing and sighing, and then that starts to distress the main character because maybe it's like, well, you're starting to become more nuanced and complicated.
Becoming
like
more human. Yeah, which is also interesting.
I like before when you just were kind of robotic, but like a human sounding voice where you would just be like, I'm happy, I'm sad, like very clear cut emotions, or like let's just talk and be goofy and laugh and feel good. Now it's like, now I always have to feel like, now is that a happy sigh or a sad sigh? Is that a sarcastic thing? Or
which is again,
yeah,
it like reinforces that thing what the wife says. Yeah, that you just wanted perfection. Yeah. So when she starts sighing and like acting more human, he gets upset about it. He's like, you can't even breathe. Yeah. So why are you breathing? Yeah. Why are you sighing? You can't even. You know? Yeah. And I'm like, this is exactly the thing that the wife was saying. He just wants perfection. Don't breathe, don't sigh, don't like make me think about what could be the matter. Yeah. I just want to know, clear cut what this is, which is again like that what the wife was saying about like he struggles so much with complexity. He struggles so much with like nuance, and people are like that at the end of the day. And you have to constantly, if you want a relationship that's fruitful and lasting, you have to constantly be checking up on each other, asking what is going on, like are you upset, or sometimes just being uncomfortable for some time, knowing that something is the matter, and I don't know, did I mess up? And you're thinking about what did I do today? Did I leave did I not wash the dishes? What was it that I know that she hates? You know what I mean? But that's just part of life. And if you're not really, if you don't want to experience the discomfort that comes with relationships, and it's not just romantic relationships, relationships are uncomfortable all the time.
We were all babies at one point. And not only I think it's important to remember at some points you have to treat your partner like a child in terms of if they're sick and they want to be taken care of, or they're in a certain state of mind and they just want to, and it's okay. But not even just if someone is very sad or something, but the way you treat a kid when they're complaining or they're sad, you go through the things. Are they hungry? Yeah. Are they tired? Are they cold? Is the temperature not right? Did they stub their toe? And you should do the same thing with your partner. It's like, okay, well, why does it now seem like they're kind of in a bad mood? Well, maybe it's simply that they're stressed about something. They had something on their mind, or they had just a bad call with their friend or their relative, or work's calling them in, anything, or they noticed a thing on their foot and it's kind of freaking them out. You got to be willing to put the time in to figure it out. Yeah, it's a thing of life, unfortunately, to accept that we all want romantic relationships, or most of us do, or just relationships. And I'd say it's the same with other relationships, but especially romantic relationships. You're gonna have to communicate and keep evolving your rubric or your way of your language or your guidelines with this other person constantly throughout life.
What else is there, sweetheart?
That's about it.
And that relationship between the OS, by the way, I don't know, I feel like we didn't actually do justice to how drawn in we were by this relationship. I cried like a baby. I felt sad because I was like, this is such a sweet, beautiful relationship. I wish she had like a physical body so that he could hold her, you know? And I was like, it's kind of like having a relationship with someone you loved but who's passed away. And you're kind of sad because he goes on a holiday with her, but he's alone in the cabin, and she's just kind of like there talking to him, and then she orders a surrogate body, and it's just so weird, and it's like, man, I really wish that these people that have this strong connection, this OS and this guy, could have this complete fulfilling relationship, and kind of I wish that she had a body, but then I'm like, if she were human, like thinking about it now, if she were human, she wouldn't be as perfect at the end of the day. So the relationship wouldn't have been as perfect. So I was drawn in too.
Yeah.
I was drawn in just as he was the whole time.
So
and Scarlett Johansson does an amazing job, honestly. Like honestly, all the actors were beautiful. But it was a really wonderful movie. At the end of the day, if anybody watched it, anyone out there, if you watched it, comment down below and share your thoughts on our thoughts.
Yeah.
Please.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And until next time, that's a wrap.